Hello, everyone. On the show today, we've got Christian joining us from Officeguru, which is a office management platform on a mission to make workplaces work better. Thanks for having you on the show, Christian. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, at least. Yeah,
Well, maybe to get started, if you can tell us a bit about yourself and Officeguru, tell us how Officeguru is trying to make workplaces work better.
right. Yeah, so at Office Guru, I'm a CPO and CTO, and it's giving our team size at the moment. I can give a elaboration on that a little bit. So I joined Office Guru back in 2018. And at that time, Office Guru actually wasn't Office Guru. It was a classical cleaning company, right? Based here in Copenhagen, Denmark. And so the CEO, Daniel, asked me to come along with him as a partner and transform this classical service company into like a modern full service facility management system or product, whatever you call it. And so we rebranded the classical cleaning company and transformed it and started up a tech side of that business, right? So we, from the beginning, we were actually only two people on the product and engineering side, and steadily over the last couple of years, we are now eight to nine people in our team, product engineering. And Office Guru itself still has the old cleaning service company within the organization. So that's I think it's a little bit different than other classical tech startups that get funding and stuff like that. We actually had an existing customer base to transform on and work from, which gave us some advantages, but there was definitely also some learnings along that path as well, I would say. But the good thing there was, and one of the reasons I joined and wanted to join, was that they had a really good and deep foundational understanding of what service actually meant to their customers, right? And so today, Office Guru is not only serving cleaning right now, where we are a marketplace for all of the office management needs, whether it's the office manager wants to buy, a handyman that has to come over, or a plant service, whatever, you can find it in our platform and our marketplace, where we have curated partners. And right now we're only located here in Copenhagen, but of course the plan is to expand beyond Denmark as well the coming time. Yeah. So I think I would say that's the first part of Office Guru, where we have this marketplace for physical interactions between our customers and partners, and trying to build a tool around that workflow, giving how they operate, right? So I would say the old classical facility management, it was and is, I would say, still pretty old school in how you manage those deals. It's on what's called yellow post-its and emails going back and forth. So we thought there would be a better way to actually build something around that workflow. And as you mentioned, we're on a mission to sound a little bold, on a mission to try to improve the workplace. And today, I think a workplace doesn't necessarily only mean the office. As we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we had an introduction call, you mentioned that you actually started out as a remote first company, right? And for us, as a modern facility management facilitator or marketplace, I think it's really interesting to see what the future brings on that part as well. So I would say that's the bold picture of Office Guru and why we're here. Yeah.
Do you product interviews? Yeah. Do you do product user interviews? And how often do you do them?
Yeah, we try to have at least a couple of customer interviews bi-weekly or each month. Depends on what we actually want to work on. If we then have a pipeline that's full for the coming 2 months because we have now scoped a big feature and building that. We're toning the interviews down a little bit, but then we're booting them up again. And so we both have the customer side of our marketplace, but we also have the supply side, right? So we also talk with our vendors as well to make sure they are happy with our product because they also need to use the marketplace to interact with the customers. So if we give them a really bad experience, it's way harder for us to make sure our customers get a good experience, because if the partners don't want to go in and reply in the platform or update the contracts to the right prices or the right terms or whatever, then everything is out of sync, and that's a bad experience for the customer in the end, right? So we can build a shiny new marketplace, but if they don't use it as the way we intended, it doesn't really matter. So we also need to talk with our partners to make sure we fulfills their needs as well, right?
So you've kind of got two users types, right? You've got like your vendors and their customers as well.
Yeah, and now I would actually say we got 3 user types, because let me give you an example. So again, here in Denmark, the usual way to get lunch in an office is through a lunch partner that comes out and you can buy it and then come each day to with a hot meal and some bread or whatever, and that goes on each day, right? So our customers in our marketplace, they can handle what they want each day with like in a little. We have built a lunch module for that, so they can up and down scale day to day for what they need, right? And that our partners would get that each day as well, so they know how much they should deliver each day to the customer. So as half of the office is out, they can see that, and they don't need to, do lunch for 20 people or 40 people, but only for the 10 people or whatever, right? But we also have built this tool where the employee that's within the office has a little application where they can say, oh, today I'm not in the office, or tomorrow I will be in the office, and I would like the vegetarian meal instead of the meat, right? So we're actually also starting to build stuff for the employees as well, even though it's not a big part of our product suite yet. I think more will come because they are a big part of the office as well, and the satisfaction in the office, right? So I would say, yeah, as I mentioned before, usually 2 user types, but also looking a little bit into how we can support the employees when they are in the office as well. So that goes up to 3. So bringing all of that together is really interesting.
This is interesting because we have a very similar challenge. Like
Yeah,
when you look at the kind of people who use Bird, it could be product managers, engineers, QAs, customer support staff, and
exactly.
now also like our customers' customers as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, my natural question for you is, who's the most, like, how do you prioritize amongst them? Like if all 3 of them are making requests and stuff, like how do you decide which ones to do you make a decision to like build a bit more for certain groups, or yeah, how do you manage this? Because it's an ongoing, it's always like a topic of discussion for us.
Yeah. That's. Maybe I would look at again the impact of the specific thing you want to build and put them in the rest of the list of things you need to prioritize, and as equals of all of the other customer types. So if it was, for example, a CS department that came up with a request for a feature that could actually bring a lot of value to a product over some other stuff that you already had in the pipeline for a developer, I would have a hard look at that and to try to figure out if that feature then would bring more value to the customer in the end, right? Because if you can accommodate the customer success person, you can actually also accommodate the developer in the end. I would say in theory, right?
Yeah, but then how do you kind of said bring enough value? How do you measure this? Is that I mean, everything you're saying, I'm just like, yeah, this
Yeah,
is these are exactly
it's good.
challenges we
It's
have
good on
to.
paper, but in reality, it's a different
Yeah, so
situation.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out how you're doing it so that maybe I can copy you. because it's an ongoing thing that
Right.
we're trying to figure out. Like, how do you measure? So, how do you kind of like look at a feature and go? Because I mean, it's all relative, right? It's
Yes,
it's not it's not concrete. So, how do you say this provides the X value versus
yeah.
doing this? Yeah,
Yes, as we talked about in the beginning, we don't have that much data to collect. Of course, we have data, but I wouldn't say it's often we can use it to make a certain decision to say this is the truth for something. It's much more about making sure you have enough information to do a qualified, a qualified decision on it, right? And that is always like a little bit of a leap of faith, I would say,
yeah,
most of the time. And yeah, but if you get enough feedback on a specific feature and you think, okay, I need to scope this out a little bit more and make it more concrete and draft out a little description on it, and then talk with the rest of the organization if they need to be involved to make sure, is this correctly understood? Is this what we're trying to achieve? Is like, if we do this now, how many customers how many customers would it affect? Like, what's the scope of this? Then I would say it's easier to prioritize.
And what's your opinion on how much to listen to your users?
I would say as much as possible, because
Mm.
if you talk about your users as your customers and not users within like your teams, I would say as much as possible. But then the exercise here is then to make sure to filter out the irrelevant stuff and only take the parts where there's
Yeah,
gold, right? Because they can talk a lot and talk about stuff that doesn't make sense at all or goes in the wrong direction or whatever. But sometimes they say something like they're talking about an experience, um, and that specific insight could actually be worth something that you need to
yeah,
dig into. And it maybe also goes back to when you then talk to the customers, have a solid framework for what you want to ask them about, and not making lead questions, but make sure
mm,
you frame things in the right way. You have the patience for it, right?
yeah. Agreed. Yeah, very often I find it's a matter of separating the wants versus the needs because like the way we do it is usually a user would or a customer would say like, oh, like we really want or need this, and then like rather than just kind of taking that face value and doing that, we kind of like boil down to, well, we just always look at it like what is the problem that they actually want to solve,
Yeah,
because they might be saying I want this feature, but actually the problem they want to solve is X, which could be solved with a completely different feature that's a lot simpler. So
yeah, and that's the responsibility in the product part, right? Taking
yeah,
that the customers saying and then convert it to a problem statement that's correct, and then validating that problem statement with other customers. We tried doing that, and then put up a list of different, like doing then a questionnaire of different problem statements that our customers has talked about and we internally talked about, and then actually sending out a little survey to our customers, um, so they could respond on that to see how many customers actually had that problem, right? And from that, we actually did a decision on what we wanted to build. I can't remember. There was some like a mathematical formula for doing that. So it was, I think it was a yes or no question, stuff like that. I can send you a link afterwards, but actually a pretty nice way of getting some solid insights on uh, respondents, in terms of the feedback a lot of the questions you're giving them.
Do you have any like example, like an anecdote of something that you never crossed your mind, but then you realize after talking to clients that something, then you end up doing it and it was super successful, or anything that you can comes to mind in terms of example that you discovered through customer um,
If
research, or anything that you
I
did,
mean,
or yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that's like example for like something that sprung into our head. Yeah, maybe actually there is, but a little while back, I think, what was it? The way we handled, I think it was actually under our supply side, right? Because as long as they're interacting with our platform, they are our users. So on the supply side, we had a hard time. Some of the feedback we got was like, how do we need to make sure everything is being handled correctly. So we need to make sure the rest of our team respond to our customers in the platform. How can we do that, right? Do we need to make a new project management system or something like that so they can handle it, or what do we do? And I think a former employee came up with a simple solution for adding a button where you could click on it and say, when you have read a message, you can mark it as handled, right? And then suddenly we could track the data and put it out in a list, so we could actually see what conversation it was read, but wasn't marked as handled. So the employees on the partner side that would do the communication with the customers could actually keep track on a lot of different communications with the customers, and chats and stuff like that. And now we provide them with a super simple solution on just clicking one button, and then the conversation was marked as handled. And their management could also see that everything was taken care of, right? So we actually solved it on different levels in a simple solution.
Those are the best ones now when they happen.
Yeah, and it doesn't always happen like that. And sometimes you overcomplicate things and do something that you actually don't need, stuff like that, right? But going back to what we talked about earlier, Jacky, you like, how do you then prioritize and make sure what you build is correct? And to trying to find the smallest possible solution for a certain problem to begin with, at least, is that's approach I like, at least. Sometimes it just takes a bigger hammer to solve a problem, and you need to realize that. But often you can actually come a long way with some smart solutions. But of course, it also has to align with the rest of your product, so you can't go totally rogue.
And it's actually harder than it sounds, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like it makes so much sense, and it sounds so almost like obvious to say, oh, let's just do the simplest thing we can do first. But actually, well, in terms of doing design as well, I think designing the simplest solution is usually the hardest thing to do, because
Yeah.
it's just so much easier to say, oh, but we can just add. I mean, easier, but also like as a lazier approach, it's just a lot easier to say, oh, let's like just add this. Oh, there's this problem. Yeah, we can just add that as well, and then everything just kind of explodes.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it goes a little back to the iterative process, right? Where you try to do as small releases as possible to make sure what you're doing is correct. And there's a lot of good principles in that, but doing that in reality can actually be really hard. You mentioned before you came from a consultancy background. I'm coming from that as well. So what we did back in the days when I worked at an agency was like we picked this broad, really big project scopes and hired a development team if we couldn't handle it in-house. And then they got started at like usually we couldn't meet the deadline, and there was always problems along the way, right? Because it was another team, or things grew more complex than intended. And sometimes when we then release the thing we had built to the customer, I mean, sometimes it didn't even was the right, like it wasn't the right solution, and then it's a bummer. So I've also learned it the hard way with long nights to hitting a deadline and make sure they got the shiny new thing they asked for, and then seeing it didn't work at all it's not fun to look at. So the approach on where you try to be a little bit more creative, and again, it comes back to if you're in an organization that allows you to do the iterative process and making small releases, that you have a management that's okay with that and not trying to put a label on price on everything you do. I like that approach to minimize the risk in that matter, but it can also be hard to constrain yourself sometimes.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, the challenge that I have sometimes with this I completely agree, by the way. We also do things in this more iterative way. The challenge I have sometimes with that is you you keep making everything as small as it can be, but then actually the kind of ideal solution, like you kind of compromise even the ideal solution. But the thing is, the ideal is not that much bigger.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, maybe it's like one part, but you've broken up into three, and then you're like, we're just going to do the first part first. We've got two left over. But then the two bits left over, it just becomes this like overhead where you need to try and figure out when we're going to do it. But then it's like by the time you're ready to do that, there's always really like 10, 20 new things that are more important that needs to be done. So then you end up kind of having this half-baked feature that kind of works and people are using, but then it's not really the best it can be. But then you're never really getting around to improving it because also in your view, you're like, well, we've already got it. It's kind of done. So why don't we like work on the next new feature?
Yeah.
That's the thing I struggle with this approach. Like, even though we are practicing this approach, it's the thing that I still struggle with a bit. It's like, we just spent like 3 days more on it, we would have just had the full thing, and then we just forget about it. We wouldn't need to worry about it. But then the thing is, once you start thinking that way, you start doing that to everything else, and then you're back to the case you mentioned at the consulting firm, where
Right.
you're kind of a waterfall approach. You're just building everything. Yeah.
But how do you approach it? Like, are you you're the only one that sit down and think about it, or do you like have other people in the room and talk about like the pros and cons of doing the three
Yeah.
more days extra? Then we have the full thing, and how do you
Yeah.
balance that?
So we try to just think of everything on a case by case basis. So usually, like the kind of one philosophy we have is a lot cheaper to spend an extra 2 days designing more things than it is to fix the code after you've implemented it. So we approach design by kind of usually designing the full thing first. So we're like, okay, what does the North Star look like? Like, what would it take to do the entire thing to solve this solution? And then actually our design reviews are kind of like for the full team. So we would share the designs out, and then anyone in the team can actually review. But just to avoid too many people like spending time reviewing the same designs, we use like Slack reactions. Like, so that's like part of our development process, actually, Slack reactions. So when
Right.
people are actually reviewing the designs, they would add like this eye reaction to show they're looking at it. So usually if there's like two eyes on something, then it kind of deters other people from spending their time on reviewing. And then they'll come back with feedback on the designs, and then we would kind of like go back on the design side and iterate on it. And I think through that iteration process, that's when we start cutting things away. Because usually when the engineers are reviewing the first draft of the designs, they're telling us like, okay, this is actually really expensive to do.
Right.
This like really, do we really need this? Is this a nice to have?
Are
And then
you
we would
using
have like,
a model for that?
sorry?
Are you using like some kind of a model framework for prioritizing that? What should be put in?
Um, well, I think at the end of the day, you have the ticket and you have the story and you've got the problem statement. So you know what's the fundamental problem you need to solve. And then like design, you kind of approach it as, let's solve the problem in the best way possible first. And then you get, with the first review, that's where you get the engineering input. So that's like the technical criteria of how long it actually takes to build this solution. And then it's a case of like really whittling it down. So like which parts of the solutions are nice to haves, which parts of the solution are too expensive but essential. But I think the key bits are knowing which ones are the essential parts which are actually solving the problem but are really expensive.
Yeah.
And can we actually then focus our efforts on that part and do it in a cheaper way?
Right.
And so the objective is to essentially get to the cheapest solution that solves the problem like to the maximum
When you say
capacity.
cheapest, do you mean like the fastest solution? With the
Not the fastest. Well,
okay.
the simplest is what I
Right.
mean by
Right.
cheapest.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's we also estimate by effort. So yeah, it's the lowest effort to
Right.
get to the solution, because we try not to. We don't try to build things as fast as possible. We just do things as like, what's the reasonable amount of time, and we just have trust in our developers to spend like the right amount of time on building something. Yeah.
We usually use the Moscow model before we even get started on designing. I don't know if you are familiar with that.
No, please share.
So the Moscow model is like a prioritization framework. So you say, so Moscow is for must have, should have, could have, and won't have, right? So you actually just boot a Kanban board up and do 4 lanes of that, and then for that full feature, whatever you want, or epic or whatever you want to do, you try to put everything in there in let's call them object or subjects, or themes, whatever, and break them down. So for example, let's say in our application, we have a filtering in our chat application, right? So you can filter and stuff and search stuff like that. So that's one thing you put in there, and that's for us to release the first version. That could be a should have, right? We can release without it, but we probably want to do it later. So we use that framework on a high level to try to. We haven't groomed the tickets in full. It's still on like high level bullet points, maybe what we want to do, and then we talk about and put them up there, and then drag around to say, okay, could we actually take this one and put it in the must-have that we want to release, and how many must-haves do we want to have in the first release, and how many could have or should have could we have, and how many won't have that would be put in there as well, right? And then locking that down, then it's easier for us to scope those out and getting the designer started as well. And then, of course, along the way, you can always go back and say, okay, that was actually one thing here we thought was a could have, but now it's a must have. We got some new information.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because we might give that a try actually. Because what we find is, at least in the design process, the first thing we do is kind of like an exploration process where you spend, and that's like wireframing mostly, and sometimes it's just literally done on pen and paper, and it's looking at let's get out of our brains like every single solution possible to solve this problem, because that usually like uncovers new ways of doing things and actually entire different solutions to the problem, which touches on other things. So it would be interesting if because with your way, you're kind of using this Moscow model, and before you even look at something visually, you're already thinking like, what are the different solutions, and then prioritizing them.
Yeah,
But then
usually
might go
sometimes
back to
we
it.
can
Yeah.
ask for a wireframe to have a better understanding on exactly how it should work, and then we could put it in. But usually we start with the broader description with user stories, and then also break it down with, or even you can even use the user stories to put in there as well, and then figure out what you want to do, and run that by. If you have a higher management that you also need to run this project by, you can also align with them on what's in the different scopes, and then you can always talk about. That's the hard thing, as you mentioned. It's easy to say, "Oh, we're going to do this later," but then actually picking it up later is the hard part, right? Because then you have other stuff to do along the way you need to attend to, and going back. But I mean, it's also a good way to figuring out if it's actually needed what you want to do. If it's a could have or should have, then it's easier for you to reject and prioritize if you have aligned it up front in some way.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, the only thing that we find what we find quite useful with our current approach of exploring the designs is, especially with people who are not very like tuned into design or like kind of visual things, like actually just having some designs, because we've got a very good component system in Figma, which means it's really easy to just mock up some quick flows. And we find like just the feedback you can get from the rest of the team is just much higher quality when they actually see something visually in front of them. Because like, when it comes to just like text and conversations, like the imagines can run a bit wild, which can get quite tricky. But
that's actually an interesting point, I think, because it also depends on if you do some design and you run it by the rest of the organization. It also the people you run it by, how, let's call it tech savvy are they? How can they abstract from this is only, even though it look like visually looks really good and you have the component system up and running in Figma, like this is still on a wireframe level, right? So
Yeah.
how much in detail should they go into and give feedback on when they see it? We actually have some kind of the opposite problem sometimes, that if we do a high, like really nice, even though high level, because we also use Figma, so we can easily drag and drop components in and we have something solid. But then people in the organization, if they're not coming from the tech background, I'm not generalizing at all, but I mean, then they can have a hard time abstracting from this is like a high fidelity wireframe. We shouldn't talk about, oh, why is this button red? You should talk about the broader functionality, right? And
Yeah.
so it can actually, for us, sometimes it can take the discussion in the wrong direction in what we actually intended when we're going into the room to present something.
Yeah. Oh, I've had this problem in the past, but fortunately our current team is much more tech savvy and quite kind of hybrid in nature. Like all our devs kind of understand the design process and actually give feedback right at the earliest stage.
So how do you ask them for feedback?
It's so actually because like Figma's prototyping features nowadays are so amazing.
Yes, that's good.
And we've actually built like a very strong component system which makes it really quick to whip out high fidelity prototypes. We almost can take a user test approach, like on kind of what's it called, like with no instructions. Basically, here's a prototype. This is a linear ticket, so you can understand what problem we're trying to solve and any user stories, and give feedback. And we will and I think usually you would get different people attuned to different things. So you would have some people who will comment on the specific UI and the details, like this button color, but then you also have people who comment on the flows. And for us, we're actually fine with like any, because we will just, and then if we've got multiple flow options, we'll just show multiple flow options. And for me personally, it's like the more information I have about everything, the better. Like I don't need to say this at this point. I just need UX like data, because that person might not be available to review my designs for the next round, kind of thing. And there will be usually like at least 2 or 3 rounds of iterations. Okay.
I think the way like you're describing it here is also the way we do it. And I think way back when we presented stuff internally, we often came into discussions with the different teams on how, if they said why is that like that, and then we try to argue on like, oh, we did this because this is and this, right? And then we had a discussion about it. But I mean, what we tried to do afterwards was like treat like the internal your colleagues that the other departments as customers as well. So you're actually not allowed to argue with them at all or discuss with them. So if they ask something about, oh, why is this flow like this, and then we have tried to set up some kind of framework for ourselves to say we can't explain them why. We then have to ask them why they are asking that question, right? Okay, do you find this workflow confusing, or what is it that does? Why are you asking this question? So taking that approach to your colleagues as well, I think.
Yeah.
Then you can have to use the same framework for customers that you can use internally. I think sometimes that can work as well.
Yeah, it's a free user test. It's a free user test from the people who understand the product the most. And if the people who understand your product the most get confused, then you know
have
for
a
sure
problem.
that a real customer is going to get confused.